Hello, it's Dave Chenault here with Skylight Systems, and in this video, we're going to take you through customization of the forms in SideKick 365 CRM. This is part one of a two-part set of videos, and in this video, we're going to go through changing the SharePoint version of SideKick 365 CRM. In the next video, we'll go through changing the Power App portion of SideKick 365 CRM. And if you recall, the idea is that the SharePoint version is used in the browser, and we anticipate you'll use that in the office. It's got a lot of additional features like managing outgoing email campaigns, setting up different security profiles, etc., that are not in the Power App version of this same program. But the data behind it all is, of course, the same and shared together in a SharePoint list. So let's look and see how we would customize the screens in the SharePoint version or the web version of SideKick 365 CRM. Now to do that, remember that all of the data is stored in SharePoint, and the way that we let you access that data is through screens that we've developed that are written with HTML and JavaScript. So this is going to be a fun video for you more technically inclined viewers, because we're going to take you into the guts behind the app to show you how it all bolts together. So here we are at the account screen, and let's say that I wanted to add two new fields underneath account ID and salesperson. I want to add in an industry code field, which is just a straight text, and then an industry type that might be a choice list. And I wanted to just add a row here and then put them in, but have phone and fax number underneath those. So I'm just making a small adjustment, adding a row and a couple of fields. So let's see how to do that. What you do is you open up a tool we have called SideKick CRM Manager, and we supply this at no charge. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'll pause the video here and come back when I've logged in. Okay, I've logged into the screens with CRM Manager, and what you're going to notice is there's three tabs at the top. The first tab lets you change the way that we reference the modules within SideKick. These are the main modules: account, contact, opportunity, etc. And these are the names that we're using here. Now, if you wanted to change that, maybe you wanted to call opportunity deals, let's say, and give it a different title, you do that here and hit update, and then in the user interface, you would see it would say deal instead of opportunity. Maybe with contact, you might want to call that people for some name, for some reason. And note, you might want to call that something else. Projects might be called case. So there's a way that you can rename these standard module names right here in the first tab. We're not going to spend too much time there. What we are going to do is we're going to add a couple of custom columns into account. And if you click here, you'll see that we can add new custom columns into any of the main modules in the system. In this case, we're going to go ahead and create two new columns in account. And the other cool thing to notice here is we can actually export these off. So if you were wanting to make, let's say, some kind of version for a very specialized industry, and you want to work out an arrangement for us to resell this tool, you could go ahead and make customizations and then export those out. They're just standard Excel files, actually, and import those in to do these customizations for each of your customers. So we do support the idea of, if you want to take our base package and customize it and sort of punch those out as a cookie cutter, you could do that as well. But let's go ahead and do some easy things here. I'm going to pause the video one more time and enter in a couple of new field types, and then I'll explain what I did when I come back. Okay, I just made one field, and I'm going to make the second field so you can see how I did that. But what you're going to notice is there's a number of columns here that we want to be aware of. One is the internal name, and that's used by SharePoint to reference this column in the list. Then there's the display name, and this is what you see whenever you set up views and that kind of a thing. Here's an screen element, and this is referenced in the HTML that I'll show you in a minute, the data type is the type of field. If there's a button, there's an ID. If you have validation, meaning you put in, let's say, JavaScript behind it, and you can do that here with validation in the code. And then you can also put in the code itself. So let's go ahead and add another one now. And this one's going to be the choice field. So I say new, and I'm going to type it in. And a good rule of thumb that we like to do is we'll put the word CST in front of it so we know it's custom. So I'm just going to type these in, and I will come back in 1 second. Okay, so we're getting ready here. I just typed a few more pieces of the identifiers here. You'll see here I have CST industry type for the name. I have industry type with a space in it, and that's fine. And then the screen ID has no spaces, just lowercase. And these are just ways that we like to keep things making sense for us. You'll notice it's all lowercase. You'll notice underscore rather than a space. No spaces here in the internal name. Now on the data type, I'm going to pick on this one's going to be choices. And you'll see all the different data types that we support, which are going to be most of the ones you see in SharePoint. So we'll say choice. And I don't have any validation, etc. So let's go ahead and save that. And it takes just a minute. And what you're going to see now is that I have 2 new fields that I've added into the account list in SideKick 365 CRM. So let's go take a look at those and see how they look. So the way to check on that is it's not on the screen yet. You can't see, and we're about to do that. But let's go take a look in the accounts settings, and we're going to take a look at how this looks behind the scenes. What did we just do with the manager tool? And we're going to look at those new fields. So if I scroll down, let's see where it added those. And there they are. You can see there's industry code and industry type. Now in the type, I'm going to go ahead and define my choice types. So if I click here, I'm going to put in industrial, services, and recreation. So I just put in 3, but you can see here it went ahead and made a SharePoint list column for me. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go into my account screen. This is really getting into the guts here, and I want to add in a new row so that those fields appear on my form and I can save data into it. Now what's going on is behind the scenes, we do all the mapping between what's here in the screen element and what's saved in SharePoint. We do all that for you. But recall that we're going to want to put a new row here where phone is, and we're going to want to push phone down one, and we're going to have the industry code, and then the industry type's going to be over here on the other side. Now let's see how to do that. We go into HTML, so don't be too afraid here. But what you're going to see is that this code is all of the HTML that's used in the screen above. So here we have account ID and salesperson. And this is the way that the screens in SharePoint CRM are created. They're straight HTML screens. And if you look, there's a lot of interesting things going on inside here. That ID, see account ID, here we have industry code, industry type. Those are the IDs that I typed into Manager, if you remember, right? So that's where they come into play. And then the name and the internal name are used by SharePoint. So we use the ID in the HTML, and we use the internal name for the mapping behind the scenes. So we've already gone ahead and added in a row, and we've formatted this so that it is going to push this industry code and industry type into a row right above phone and fax. So let's take a look at that one more time. So we should have a new row when we put this in right here. So let's go into Manager. And the next thing we're going to do is go to the HTML. And now we're going to load in a new piece of code. We're going to load in that new screen that I have. So when I click on load, what you'll see is these are all the standard screens that come whenever you ask for Manager. We'll send you these. Now I have already gotten that new piece of account code written, and I'm going to go ahead and open that. And it says done. And now what we should do is whenever I go into the refresh, if everything's working as planned, I should see those new fields. And there they are. If you see, I have industry code and industry type here, right? So just to refresh, what happened was that we took the code, and I'm using a free editor here from Microsoft, and we added in the row after we had defined them in Manager, and then we went into Manager and just loaded that new screen in here, and it did that. It's just called custom. And I could also reset it back to the standard screen if I wanted to. So let's see how this works in practice. We're going to go now over into the screen and we're going to edit that. So when I come in to edit it, I'm going to put in my new code, which is going to be Dave1. And the type, if you remember, I went ahead and there they are. I'll call it services and I'll save it. So what should happen is I should now have those values saved with my account. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you wanted to add a lot of different things, it's completely possible. We've done some wild customizations for our customers. And if you wanted us to do that for you, we can as well. But if you want to do simple customizations like adding in some columns and rows, that's easy to do, and I just added in 2 to show you how to do it. But there's really no limit on what you can add. Now, just looking at a few more things here before we end up this one, what you'll see is that if you ask for the manager, we're also going to send you samples. And this shows you how to add the text field, how to add in numbers, a pick list, ones that have required values with them, radio buttons, etc., people pickers. All of the code samples are here, and you can also open up the account screen to look and see how we did it as well. You can also add in JavaScript, as I mentioned. So if you wanted to, you could put this JavaScript into Manager here and put that on the validation part of it. You could say that I wanted to have validation on this, or you could just put the code in with it as well. If you had validation, it would run that code for sure to make sure that it was required, etc. So this is a quick overview of customizing SideKick 365 CRM with Manager. A little bit technical, but it does show you how we do it behind the scenes. Now, the next video in this series is going to take you through how we would do the same thing in the Power App, the mobile version. How would we enter in the industry code and industry type that we created here with Manager? Let's add that to the Power App. Okay, this is Dave Chenault with Skylight Systems. I hope you found this to be an interesting video, and watch part 2 on how to customize your Power App version of this app.